Hi, and welcome to my Classic Licks video for the month of April 2015. And this month we're going to take a look at the playing of Earl King from New Orleans, one of the more interesting electric blues guitar players from the 1950s and 60s. Earl was still active and playing all the way up until his death, and he recorded a really cool album with the Roomful of Blues I think in the 80s. But I'm going to focus mostly on his playing in the 1950s and 60s. And starting out with his style, I'm just going to show you some general things about the way he played that I picked up from listening to his songs. Then I'm going to show you some specific licks that I've borrowed from Earl King's playing and the ideas behind them. And then we're going to take a look at the chord structures of his songs. He had some really cool chord structures that were so much different than the standard, even blues, even rock and roll, doo-wop 50 songs that were going on at the time. And very unique, and we'll use that as a chance to learn some more about chords and how you can put them all together. Let's start out just in general. Earl King, when you listen to the solos on his songs, first of all, he didn't play a lot of solos. And I was kind of disappointed when I started buying some CDs and downloading some of his songs and listening to them. A lot of them don't even have guitar in the forefront. Most of the time it's the horn section of the sax and the other horns. He'll play solos on some songs that are really cool, but very sparse. Seldom goes beyond one verse. Sometimes in a song he won't even play a solo till the very end as the song is fading out. And there's some exceptions to that, but in general, that's really true. He doesn't play a ton of guitar. But what he does play seems to be mostly based, most of the licks and things he plays are based, like a lot of guys, out of the first position blues box. So if we're playing in B flat, which just seems like a good Earl King chord to play, and we'll do some songs in this key in a little bit. A lot of his solo playing, again, he's just in the blues box. And he's not going much beyond the third string. A lot of times that's where his solos and his licks are based off, is that third string bend. So if we're in B flat, first finger's on the 6th fret of the 3rd string, second finger on the 7th, ring finger on the 8th. Right in that pocket. Now I'm going to show you some specific licks that he would do. I think most of what he plays, just in general, in the first position blues box, you can figure out on your own if you want to listen to it. I'll show you a few of the licks and things that he does. Every now and then, he'll go down to the second blues box. Not very often. He seems to stick in that first position blues box. So let's start out and do some licks out of that first position blues box. I'm going to put the licks in the context or in the keys of the songs that I got them from, in as many cases as I can remember. And I'll try to mention the specific songs. Sometimes I write it down, sometimes I forget. I'll go back and do that before I scan the tab and post it. First Earl King lick. Let's go to the key of E. And there's a tune, probably his best known tune. It's called Come On. And it's been covered by a lot of different people. And in that tune, he's got a lick during the solo that goes like this. So we're going to go up here to the 12th fret. Sounds like this. And that is a cool, simple Earl King lick that you can pull out. Got my first finger on the 12th fret of the 2nd string, my 2nd and 3rd finger. I'm going to bend on the 3rd string at the 14th fret. That's where my ring finger is. And then I'm going to bend up, get the 12th fret of the 2nd string, and then my pinky's going to go to the 15th fret of the 2nd string. Then I can go back into my blues box licks. So one more time. And he leads into that to start the solo. It's like, and he does, I don't think that's exactly it, but that's close enough. So there's a lick. You can move around. You can play it in C. Johnny Guitar Watson did something similar, just played it a little differently with the capo on there. So there's one Earl King lick. Another one comes from the same tune, Come On, and toward the end of the song, he does a lick that goes a little bit like this. plays that over and over again as he's kind of wrapping up the song, as the horns are taking the song out. You have to hear that, you have to listen to Come On, the extended version. It's got parts 1 and 2, and this part of the song you don't hear on the shortened version. But what he's doing, again, we're in the key of E. He's starting it out with a double stop on the 2nd and 3rd strings at the 12th fret, then to the 14th fret of the 4th string, and then double stop 1st and 2nd strings at the 12th fret. That's the whole leg. Wrapping up on the 14th fret of the 4th string. You can double it up. Something like that. You can just get the 1st string. Freddie King did a song, I can't remember what song it was, where he did a lick very similar to that. I always like that. That's kind of a cool Earl King type lick. Another one comes from a tune called Eating and Sleeping. This one is in E flat, and he does something like this. And that is a very simple but very cool sounding lick. So if I'm in E flat, I'm doing that same basic bending thing I was doing before with my 1st finger on the 11th fret of the 2nd string, 2nd and 3rd fingers on the 3rd string at the 12th and 13th frets. Then I'm also keeping my 1st finger on the 1st string at the 11th fret. So when I pick, I'm picking the 3rd, 2nd, 1st strings. So those licks Earl King would use in combination with a variety of runs in the 1st position blues box. So there's another one. Now in that same tune, he does a really unique lick. So far all those licks are fairly common. I'm not sure people play it just like that. Actually that last one was more common. This one is very unique. Sounds like this. And he does this in the solo for Eating and Sleeping. Now you can only do this in a couple of keys unless you have superhumanly long fingers or big hands. I've got some pretty big hands and this is pretty tough for me to do. What I'm doing is I've got my 1st finger on the E flat, which is at the 11th fret of the 1st string. I'm taking my pinky all the way up to the 16th fret of the 2nd string. I've got an octave. Then I'm going to move the pinky to the 15th fret and then back to the 16th as I pick both 1st and 2nd strings. And he does that lick in the context of the solo where he's playing a bunch of different stuff. So that lick, that octave lick, you can't do that. D, we could do it in D. I don't think I can go much further down the neck and do that. So there's another Earl King lick. That's a unique lick that he plays in that one song called Eating and Sleeping. Now another thing about his solo playing, he has a mode that he would go into, especially on his slower songs, from what I've listened to. I call his Guitar Slim mode. And it turns out that Guitar Slim was Earl King's hero. And in fact, he could play and sing so much like Guitar Slim that at one point, I think in 1954, when Slim was in a car wreck, Earl King actually filled in for him on tour and posed as Guitar Slim. And he did a nice version of Things I Used to Do. Earl King's most famous tune, along with Come On, is a tune called Those Lonely, Lonely Nights. And in that tune, which is also in E flat, he does a lot of the solos and fills in what I call a Guitar Slim type mode. So something like this, where in E flat, he'll do something like... He does a lot of licks like that. He has another really slow tune called My Love Is Strong, where he does that throughout the whole solo and also as fills. So if we're in E flat, the secret of that sound is we're really just staying in between the 11th and 13th frets on the 1st and 2nd string. So we can do a lot of different stuff. And then occasionally he'll slide up. So for an E flat, we're sliding to the 15th fret. And then when he slides, he'll slide back. And he'll do all kinds of different variations in the melody using those basic positions and notes depending on what key he's in. So when he does this, that sliding back down, that's an important part of his sound from what I've heard. And in a little bit we'll get into the chords for his version of Things I Used to Do, and we'll talk a little bit more about this. So on his slow tunes, instead of playing like, he does some of that, some standard blues licks, but he also does this really mellow, what you'd expect to hear from Guitar Slim. So those are some basic licks from the playing of Earl King. When I come back, we're going to look at some of the ways that Earl King uses bass notes in his solos. And there's one particular tune where he does a really neat solo using the bass strings.